Welcome back to Pack the Rock podcast presented by the Hoosier Network. I am your host, Carlo Barone, joined alongside Max Parker and Evan Gerike of the Hoosier Network. How are we feeling today, guys?
Feeling good. Indiana's 1-0, so that's always a good way to kind of start off the week. And it was Labor Day. We had Monday off, which
was very good. 4-day weeks are perfect. I'm hungry right now.
Really, honestly, I have a 3-day week. I don't have classes on Friday.
I don't have. Whoa.
So I mean, outside of the Hoosier game day, we do.
There you go.
Fridays is pretty much also a weekend for me. So.
But Hoosier game day's fun.
Exactly. It's not like class.
It's not
I get to
school.
enjoy.
And it takes all day to record.
No,
it does not. We actually were very efficient last week.
I know.
You were on the show?
I was.
I know that because I watched it.
That studio looked great, too.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh, my
gosh. The studio's new. We're still working on a lot of things. I think it'll be more exciting as it goes on. So make sure you're checking out Hoosier Game Day.
I love how we can point at things.
Yeah.
Whenever Evan and I need to, we can point.
Whenever we need to tell the audience to do something, we can look into your eyes.
Nice. Yeah, we had a lot of great coverage from, if you missed any of our coverage from the Illinois game, check it out. We very, very proud of the crew and excited for this next week.
Great first week for the coverage team and the Indiana football team. They defeated. Now it's Idaho week.
Big week.
Indiana defeated Illinois 23-20 Friday night. I mean, we were all there. Game-winning touchdown, 24 seconds left. Bazelak magic in the last minute of the game. Just what were you guys' general thoughts just watching the game in general? Just at the end.
Yes, I'm going to start off with a caveat. I was not at the game this weekend. I was at home with my family, spent some time there, so I didn't really get to watch the game. Unfortunately, we had some kind of a conflict with the schedule there. I have watched some highlights. I haven't got time to watch the entire game, so I'm a little bit out of touch on the performance other than what I've read and what I've watched and the Hoosier Nets coverage, which, of course, I followed all of.
Nice.
So I'll let Max start with general thoughts on the performance.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the only thing that really sticks in your head is that final drive because recency, obviously, and that's the only thing that's what pushed the needle. That was a great drive. It was methodical. I mean, I said it in the package that I did covering the game. That was a beautiful 2-minute drive, beautiful 2-minute drill. But again, as the coaches talked about so far this week, there were a lot of things that they need to adjust to. The run game for Illinois was fantastic. And for a while, it looked like Indiana could not stop that, and there were a few moments when Illinois would go to the passing game and Indiana would make them pay for it. Now, Illinois did have one or two big plays, but aside from that, they really relied on Chase Brown to be their workhorse, and he was for a while. So that's one of the big things that kind of stands out as needs to improve is that D-line. But just a great final drive to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that Tom Allen and the rest of the staff talked about, as well as kind of Bazelak talked about, just like, yeah, we won. There's a lot of things we need to improve. But the big thing is getting that win. Obviously, getting a Big Ten win for the first time in a long time is so important to this team and their morale moving forward.
Yeah.
And just being able to, I don't think Illinois is going to be a bad team this year. I think they're pretty good, especially if Chase Brown and Isaiah Williams keep playing like they've been playing so far. So beating a Big Ten team like that is no, shy feat. It's not beating up on a bottom dweller. It's not beating Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
But
Ouch.
Wow,
there were a lot of missed tackles, and we'll talk about some of the stuff of missed tackles and things that they can do better, but also things that are going to be excited to see grow as they go on. One thing for me is just that connection between Bazelak and Matthews and Camper as his kind of number 1 and 2 wide receivers.
Yeah,
especially Cam Camper. I'm really excited to see what he does going forward.
Camper had a phenomenal game, over 100 yards. I mean, he proved to be the one guy, especially on the last drive, that they could just keep going through him and DJ Matthews. But my initial thoughts just from the game, I think it was really a tale of two halves for Indiana. In the first half, you saw their offense kind of take the field and kind of control the game. But then the second half, up until the final drive, they only had 37 total yards of offense. So going into the final drive, I mean, I didn't know how Indiana was going to do, but if they kept playing like they were the whole second half on the final drive, the game was going to go to Illinois. But they didn't, and you guys saw obviously what happened. But I think Allen talked about it in the locker room. This was obviously just week one. It's technically a non-conference schedule, but they're playing a Big Ten opponent. Mm-hmm. He didn't downplay the win. He said it was very important for the team just to get back in the win column. Obviously, it's something that they haven't done in a really long time. So
that Iowa game last year, week one, was just brutal to the team's confidence. I mean, you come down, you're a ranked opponent. You go in thinking that you have a real good chance to knock off this team on the road and just get absolutely blown out. There's no offense in sight.
Yeah.
That really had a big impact on how the season turns out. I know, like, obviously you win that's one Big Ten game, but I think if you beat Iowa last year, you've got at least 2 more wins coming after that, just because of the being able to ride off of that. Cincinnati may have gone a little bit differently, and just kind of the whole season, really, that Iowa game turned it around. So like you said, Carl, this is a really big deal to beat an Illinois team in week one.
Yeah. I mean, there's just really quick there. You can't put too much emphasis on like coming out and setting the tone for this year, because it would have been so easy to just for people watching the team, for media, including ourselves, for fans to if Indiana came out flat, it would just be so easy for everybody to just totally dump on this team. I mean, and they really set the tone, and I think they set themselves up, and we're going to talk about this going forward. They specifically set the tone for the non-conference slate that's coming up.
I think a lot of people can say that if they follow Indiana football, they feel a lot better. Especially, I don't know about you guys, but I feel a lot better about this passing offense about after game one compared to what we saw last year and when Penix got hurt in 2020. It's just been it's back to what they used to have a few years ago when they were winning games. It looks like just one game. Obviously, I could be overreacting, but he did have 330 yards, a touchdown, and a pick with a 109 quarterback rating, which is pretty good, especially for your first game ever as an Indiana Hoosier, and you win on the final drive with no timeouts. You really couldn't have asked for a much better day from Bazelak. Now, what do you guys think about Bazelak's debut?
Yeah, I mean, it was about as good as I think you could have asked. I mean, it could have been better, and Walt Bell talked about a lot of kind of chunk plays that they left on the field yesterday, but 330 yards, and I know he probably wants more touchdowns, and the interception wasn't really his fault. That one bounced out the hands of, I think it was Anderson Kobe, but for Bazelak just kind of start like that and get his feet under him for Indiana and have a debut that we haven't seen since Antoine Randall L., which is always a good name to be next to in Indiana football history. You have to be happy, and Bazelak still got room to improve. And you also have to remember, like, this is just week one, and Illinois had a week 0 game, so they were not coming in without seeing live football in a while. And kind of to jump to the defense real quick, that was one thing they were talking about. I think it was 23 missed tackles is the number they gave.
Yeah.
So they're missing a lot, but Indiana's only going to improve from here, and there's definitely room for them to improve. But with Bazelak under center, I think there's good places for them to go, I think.
Yeah, and I thought a big takeaway as well was Walt Bell's scheme. I mean, that was a big takeaway from Monday's presser, was just hearing his breakdown of why things happened the way they did. And we're going to talk about this later a little bit, so I won't totally dive in when we kind of touch on the run game. But I thought he schemed very well, and it was those big chunk plays, something that IU fans have not seen in feels like a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, that touchdown to DJ Matthews, the 52-yard play, I haven't seen one of those in Memorial Stadium in a really long time. And I think that play just kind of ignited the offense as a whole, because that was their first touchdown in a really long time. And it was one they haven't really gotten in a while, because most of them, I feel like, were on the ground last season. But speaking of the touchdown, that was DJ Matthews, who him and Cam Camper kind of took the wide receiver position by, I don't want to say by storm, but they led the position group, especially in the first game. Mm-hmm. They had, basically had over 300 yards, and most of that went to Camper and Matthews. How confident are you guys in their ability to lead the group going forward, and how confident are you just in Indiana's wide receiver core in general?
I would say very confident, just judging from based on how they've been talking about things. I mean, that Cam Camper thing did not come out of left field based on what everyone was saying. I think it might have been me, but multiple of us had talked about in our prediction, our round table, that Camper was really going to be an impactful guy on this squad. And I was basing that based on how highly the quarterbacks talked about him and how unrelenting they were about just consistently bringing his name up. So that wasn't totally a shock and out of nowhere. And then DJ Matthews, that talent is there. That talent was clearly visible in his previous stop at Florida State. It was very visible last year before he went out and got injured. So it was just a question of if he can bring that back, and he put on display in game one, at least so far, that he very much can do that.
Yeah, and in the past few years, and really just kind of any team, but I'll focus on Indiana, you see consistently you've got your number one and your number two receiver. And for Indiana, the number two receiver has really been the guy that's taken a huge step forward. Going back to 2019, when Nick Westbrook was kind of your number one guy, and Watt Fillier had that huge season. And then you had in 2020, Watt Fillier is your number one guy, and Ty Freifogel has one of the best seasons in recent Indiana football wide receiver history. Didn't really have that last year. Freifogel had a bad year, and so did everyone else. Mm-hmm. But I think with DJ Matthews and Cam Camper, you're going to see guys who kind of are going to go back and forth as being the number one receiver. So, next week, I would expect DJ Matthews to have the bigger game because I think they're going to try to shut down Cam Camper a little bit more. And Camper, like Max was saying, has been talked about so much throughout the offseason. Tom Allen really seems to love the guy. He also didn't have any Power 5 wasn't recruited by any Power 5 schools coming out of JUCO. Yeah. And Tom Allen was kind of how does he not have this? He talked about his burst of speed to the ball yesterday, and just kind of going out and getting it. And you really saw that in the game. And for a guy that came from JUCO and wasn't really highly rated, there's a really good chance that you can see him kind of burst onto the scene at Indiana and really kind of make something of himself alongside DJ Matthews. And not to just kind of touch on the rest of the wide receiver group. And you asked about the confidence. There's still definitely room to improve. I think that's obvious. I also just thought it was kind of interesting that they talked about using, I think, 7 or 8 or 9 wide receivers, and there's really only 4 or 5 that got kind of regular time outside the tight ends. We only saw Donovan McCulley play 4 snaps. He got a 1-yard reception. Emery Simmons didn't play a whole lot, but he got 22 yards. A.J. Barner got 25 yards at the tight end spot. 2 receptions for Javon Swinton for 8 yards. So there's clearly favorites, and I think we need to see the other guys step up in the next few weeks, and you'll have to take everything that happens against Idaho with a little bit of a grain of salt, especially if it happens later on in that game. But Western Kentucky and Cincinnati, you need to see guys step up besides DJ Matthews and Cam Camper, or else teams are really going to focus on those two, and it's going to be harder to find that number 3 guy who kind of solidifies himself as someone who Bazelak can target going forward.
I think I mentioned it in last week's episode, but the non-conference schedule for Indiana is going to be very telling about their wide receiver depth. Obviously, the first game, you look at Camper and DJ Matthews, they almost have identical stat lines, 11 catches for Camper, 7 for Matthews, 150 yards, 109 for Matthews. I mean, the averages are close, and even the long plays they're almost identical. DJ Matthews just a little bit behind Camper in volume, but I think the non-conference schedule is going to build whoever that wide receiver number 3 is. Obviously, A.J. Barner might be the one who is the third person to get the ball, but the wide receiver 3 position is still very much open.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
I would say so. So now talking about the not so good part about Indiana's performance was their running game. They had Shivers, who's the number 1 back, had 15 carries for 28 yards. And the first play of the game, oh boy, that looked rough. I'm not gonna lie. So, what do you guys think Indiana needs to do running the ball wise? Just improve, really, the whole thing as a whole.
Block.
Yeah. The offensive line's going to have to play better.
I mean, even the offensive line definitely needs to play better. That's been the theme for the past few years. But even watching that replay of Shivers getting laid out, it was Swinton and Matthews set to block the cornerback who was kind of coming in on a blitz, and they both just kind of turned away. And the guy came right in between them. They just completely missed the block. And that's definitely on them. But the rest of the game, like you need to see more from your offensive line. And with Bedford out, that's really going to hurt.
Yeah.
You hope that Parker Hanna can kind of step up. But he got thrown in there. I think he played 40-some snaps after Bedford went down in his first Power 5 action. That's a lot to ask of him, even for a guy that's older with some more experience. But someone needs to step up on the offensive line. So in some way, it needs to take drastic steps forward.
Yeah, here's what I wanted to touch on from what Walt Bell said. Just kind of the thought process behind they expected the rushing to be really tough. They said that looking at Illinois' film, no matter how many guys you put in the box, they're always going to have one more. So if you just leave your 5 offensive linemen, they're going to bring 6. If you have 5 O-linemen plus a tight end, they're going to bring 7 just to always outmatch you. So, I mean, he was expecting to be always outmatched, but, I mean, you'd love in a situation like that, if you're Indiana, your guys to be able to handle that and you to be able to take a few blocks and at least give a little bit of time. I mean, Shivers... He took a beating this game. I mean, even that tight end, even that last touchdown, he only had it felt like less than a yard to gain, because he still did run into a brick wall. He just was able to get the push and get through, and that was consistent throughout the entire game. It just felt like every time he was getting the ball, he was running straight into just a mesh of bodies, and he just couldn't get through.
Yeah, they talked about, I think it was 40 or 50 of the 80 snaps in the game. They graded as pressures from Illinois. And I don't know how often they're going to see teams bringing that much pressure. It might not be every week, but that's also a playbook for how to beat Indiana, is just bring a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But on that same note, that goes back to what Bazelak's good at getting rid of the ball quickly. It's something that we saw him do pretty often this week, of just kind of getting the ball out, not being afraid to throw the ball away and not take sacks. But whatever it is, if Bazelak can kind of go quickly and get that ball out, that'll help with the offensive line and kind of blocking his pressures, and it'll give the wide receiver group room to run. But if you want to run the ball and really open up the wide receivers for a chance to kind of make those big plays, you have to, create alleys for Shivers to have room in. And he's shifty. He can do it.
Yeah.
But we didn't see that this week for sure.
In order to get the play action plays, they're going to have to show that they can run the ball so people believe it.
Yeah.
So absolutely, they have to improve in that area if they want plays like that one to DJ Matthews, which was a play action. If they want plays like that going forward, they're going to have to show that they can run the ball. Now, on the other side of things, they only allowed 20 points defensively, and they had 4 turnovers against Illinois, but they did allow over 400 yards of total offense. So a lot of ups and downs. I mean, if they don't get those turnovers, how many points do they score? So it's just food for thought. But how do you guys feel about Indiana's first defensive showing?
Well, one, I think on the turnovers, do they have any points on turnovers, or do they score from that last turnover? I know the first 3 they did not score off of. I remember seeing that. So that's one thing. And getting turnovers in general is huge. I also know, because they missed a lot of tackles, they'll get better at that. And once they start making more of those tackles, that's a lot of those yards that will kind of come down. A lot of the yards that Illinois got were kind of yards after catch, yards after contact kind of stuff that Indiana can't really deal with. But the one thing that really impressed me with those turnovers was the secondaries were ball hockey again. Josh Sanguinetti had the 1 interception and almost had another right before the game ended. And that 4th turnover would have been as time expired, that last lateral. So I don't think they had any points off turnovers. But if the safeties and the secondary is going after plays like that, when those balls get tipped or swatted or just kind of missed, and you've got another guy right there to make that pick, that's huge for Indiana's defense. And it's big for their offense, too, because that'll give them really good field position a lot of times. And that's something Tom Allen talked about less man-to-man and more zone defense. So when the ball goes, they can kind of collapse on it and create that havoc that they like talking about. That's big for whatever Indiana does the rest of the season, is how that turnover margin works.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think there were moments when, again, a lot of that went to Chase Brown having a lot of success. And he's a very talented player, so a lot of credit goes to him. But the defensive line looked porous to start the game, for sure. And so I think some of that's got to close up. And yeah, there were a lot of missed tackling, which they're very, very aware of.
One-on-ones, just missing an open field and missing in close field with Chase Brown bounces off a guy and gets another 5 yards. And they're not going to be facing dynamic runners like Chase Brown every week, but this is the Big Ten, and you got to stop guys like that.
You're going to have running backs in the Big Ten that can break tackles, that are pretty big guys that can lower their shoulder. They're not speedy backs. Now there are some, but the Big Ten's pretty physical, so they're going to have to wrap up. So looking at this week's game, Indiana hosts Idaho on Saturday at 8 p.m. They played Idaho in the second week of last year as well, and they won 56-14, and the game was pretty much over in the first half. What area should the Hoosiers look on to improve this game? I know we've already talked about some areas that they need to improve on, but what will you guys be looking in this game in general, or who do you think should get snaps and get an opportunity to shine?
I think two things for me. One, this is a great game. Again, you can never put paper to pen and say this is a W, but I mean, this is a great game to work on your run game, and also really get that chemistry down on the offensive line with Bedford out now. And so this is a chance for Indiana to really experiment with stuff. The other thing I was going to say is work on getting in this game, work on getting A.J. Barner more involved. This is just a game to try things out because, again, Indiana, a team that went 2-10 last year, was able to demolish Idaho. And so if they're improved, they should be able to do that again. So this can be a game where just establish yourself early and then give yourself enough of a cushion to really be able to test things out. Try your offense out. Try certain offensive line combinations out in live game. Give some guys a chance to see if some of these younger players are able to break out and just kind of see what you have for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I pulled up the stats from last year, and honestly, I'm not really sure how Indiana scored 56 points looking at this. Jack Tuttle was the highest passer with 91 yards, and 76 of those came on a pass to A.J. Barner. That long touchdown, late in garbage time.
That one.
He had less than 100 yards?
Penix started, and he had 68 yards.
Oh.
Yeah, they had 159 yards passing. Stephen Carr had 118 yards on the ground, which is one thing. I think Sean Shivers has got to have a bigger game this week, and he should be able to.
He's got to put up Stephen Carr numbers that he put up last year.
Yeah, that offensive line kind of picks it up. That'll be a lot easier for him. But they outrushed their passing, 179 to 159. But a lot of it last year had to do with their special teams. A kick return from Jacoby Hewitt for 72 yards that I honestly don't remember. And then DJ Matthews' 81-yard punt return was another big kind of shift for them. Mm-hmm. So you want more offense in this game this week than you got last year.
Don't let it be your special teams that carries you to the blowout.
No, and I tweeted out after the Illinois game about kind of pass yards, and Bazelak already nearly has as many as McCulley and Tuttle did all of last season in 7 and 6 games. I don't remember which one had more. They were both in the 400s, so 200-yard passing game from Bazelak, and he's got more yards than two of your starting quarterbacks last year, and is well on his way to passing Penix's 900. So you would like to see kind of a big offensive game, just to kind of inspire some confidence into what your team can do when you're playing, better defenses and better offenses.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised the way Coach Bell was talking. I think he was like, against Illinois, we left a few chunk plays up on the board. I mean, if they're able to, against a much weaker Idaho defense, if they're able to capitalize on all of that, I wouldn't be surprised if Bazelak's able to put up 400 yards.
I think that would be ideal. I think Indiana would love to see him throw 400 yards.
Yeah.
I think Bazelak can do it too.
Yeah.
I think having a quarterback go over 400 yards. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Penix he had 300 yards against Western Kentucky last year, but then not many more for the entire year.
No, that was pretty much it. And I know his big game was 2020 against Ohio State. He was like 3 yards short of Indiana's single game passing record.
Yeah.
But I mean, Penix just wasn't himself last year, and we all saw that.
We all knew.
Yeah.
But having Bazelak, if he has a monster game, 400 yards, four touchdowns, and no picks, I mean, there's not much more you'd want from a starting quarterback, especially in their second game. And
he had
you'd feel
330
better.
yards last week, and it didn't even seem like his passing numbers are near what he wants them to be. Walt Bell said they probably left 400 passing yards on the field, which I don't think Bazelak's going to throw for 700 yards.
700 yards, let's do it.
That would be a lot of fun.
Like 1,000 yards of total offense.
But if they're that confident in his ability for a guy who threw 28 for 52, I mean, and Walt Bell also said it's the most he's ever thrown at quarterback. And it was kind of funny the way he phrased it because it sounded like he was the quarterback. So I don't know if they've transferred to Walt Bell.
Walt Bell's taking snaps now.
But
yeah,
you can definitely see an even bigger game from Bazelak. But I have a feeling they're really going to try to focus on running the ball and kind of getting that increase. Yeah. So you might not see anything insane. Probably no 700-yard passing games.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll be looking for is what we've been talking about. I think that they just have to run the ball better. I think offensive line schemes running the ball, I think they're going to improve this game. And I think now that they'll have a week to look at film and grade people, they'll know pretty much what they need to do to improve, and I think they're going to enforce that this week.
Yeah.
So on the final note of the Indiana-Idaho game upcoming this Saturday, we have to go through predictions, and I'm sorry, Evan, but you were the only one to pick Illinois last week, so you start the year with a fat 0-1. You're doing worse than Indiana is right now.
Honestly, I'm fine with that.
Hey, we're 1 week in the year.
Someone here's got to be the pessimist.
That's all right. No, I'm glad you chose them.
I'll take the anti-hero role.
Max, good pick last week.
Boom. Feels good to be a winner.
So,
Max,
Evan.
what was your score prediction last week?
2017.
You were pretty close.
You were pretty close this one.
I think we were all about there with the score. I just got the team on top wrong.
We were sitting up there in the press box. We were trying to do the math on how I could get to my
2 safeties.
Yeah, I needed 2 safeties. Couldn't quite get there this week, but
or a field goal and a 1-point safety.
Wait a minute.
1-point safeties are too complicated to explain.
Isn't there a drop kick? There's a drop kick for 1 point you can do, right?
That's rugby.
No, but
there's an excellent SB Nation video. They just
I remember watching a highlight with the old Patriots quarterback, the really short dude.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but I know what you're talking about. The drop kick. It's like very rare, but
yes,
I do know what you're talking about.
A drop kick in the NFL's rule book is defined as a kick by a kicker who drops the ball and kicks it, or immediately after it touches the ground. How many points is it though?
I think that's just a normal.
Is it still 3? No, you like drop it on the ground and kick
and
it
then
out.
you
Yeah,
kick
but
it
I
out.
think that still counts for the same. It would still be a field goal or a PAT. I think it counts differently.
Okay.
But 1-point safety is when a team trying a 2-point conversion or a PAT turns the ball over. The defense takes the ball out of the end zone and then gets tackled in the end zone for a safety.
Wait,
one more time here, Evan.
So a team is trying a 2-point conversion. So let's say it's Indiana just scored a touchdown and they're going for a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Okay.
On that 2-point conversion, they throw an interception.
Mm-hmm.
The other team takes the ball out of the end zone and then goes back in the end zone and gets tackled for a safety.
By Indiana.
Yes.
1 point.
That is a 1-point safety for Indiana.
I had no idea that rule existed.
It has never happened in the NFL, I'm pretty sure. It has happened like twice in college football, and it's a wacky rule, but it's fun. It would be fun to see. And that field goal and that is another way you could have gotten 2017.
I'm surprised you didn't think of that first, Max.
Yeah. Me too.
I should have been an Iowa fan this week. They got 7 points off of a field goal and 2 safeties.
Yeah. I saw one of the.
It is possible, I
the
guess.
Star Wars memes where it's like Anakin and Padme.
Yeah.
And it's like
I love Star Wars.
It's like Iowa scored 7 points. Oh, so they scored a touchdown, right?
Oh yeah,
They scored a touchdown, right?
that was good.
Classic Iowa.
Classic Big Ten. The 7-3 final. Classic Big Ten.
Just side note, didn't Spencer Petras have a QBR of 1.1?
I did not see that.
Oh, geez. That's bad.
At least
Oh my
that's what I
God.
saw. I'm gonna fact check that while you ask our
Predictions.
what's our other
Predictions.
question?
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Wait, oh, yeah. Predictions. Evan, since you got the one wrong last week,
Go first.
I'll have you one start this
Yeah,
one.
compared to last year, I'm gonna put more confidence in their defense and their offense. I'm gonna go with 38-6 Indiana.
38-6 Indiana. Okay. And just as a note, against South Dakota State, he had a passer rating of 72.6. He had a quarterback rating of 1.1.
That's what we call in the
Adjusted
business not good.
Oh, you want it to be more?
Ideally, yes.
What
I don't
were
think
his
it's on a
stats again?
scale of 1.2. So
109 yards and an intercept. Yikes. If you're Iowa, you'd like to see a bit more production out of your starting quarterback. Hot take.
would you actually, if you're Iowa, you just kind of hope that you bore the other team into not scoring? So he did all he needed to do.
We're really roasting Iowa.
Did you guys watch any of that game?
No.
I watched like 3 minutes of it, and it was probably the worst game I've ever watched. It was
When-
just
when was that
punt,
even
punt,
played?
punt, punt.
Was that
Saturday.
around lunchtime?
Yeah, I was actually at Buffalo's.
I was probably eating lunch.
I saw another. Apparently my Twitter feed is full of college football memes, but I saw another one about it was like this is the same sport, and it had the game the punt drive recap for that one, and then for North
Appalachians.
Carolina App State
Dude.
of just 63-61,
40
all
points
those
in the fourth
touchdowns,
quarter.
and you lose,
And they lost. Oh my gosh.
Okay, final meme about that. There was someone saying, like, it wasn't a meme, it was just a funny take. They were like, 7 points through 4 innings is great offensive production. I don't know what everyone's talking about. Funny. Okay,
Funny, Max.
Carlo, go for your prediction. I'm still thinking.
Yeah, I have Indiana winning 49-3. I think that it's gonna be what it was kind of last year. I would hope that their defense can keep them out of a touchdown. And I think the running game has to rebound, like we've talked about for the last 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they can run the ball and Baselak has a good passing day, it'll be another Indiana W. 2-0 to start the season.
Yep. I'm going back and forth on whether or not I'm doing an inflated score
You're gonna
from
choose Idaho wins?
Indiana. No.
Oh.
Or a shutout from Indiana, but less points. I'm going to go with, because I want to be entertained, I'm going to go with more offense. Let's go 63-3.
There we go. There we go.
63-3.
All right, Max.
Go bigger. It's a good week to go
that's
big or
your,
go home.
That's your more offense and not worried about the defense as much. You're going between 3 points or 0 points.
63-7.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Nope. Stick to your guns. 63-3.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Stick to my
Say
guns.
it with your chest. 63-3. You got it.
63-3.
We
Yeah.
don't
Say it with my
believe in
chest,
Idaho's ability to score a touchdown despite giving Washington State a scare last week. I don't think that's much. I don't think Washington State is great, but maybe we should be putting a little more stock in Idaho.
Now I want to change it.
Watch
No,
Idaho.
can't change it now. It's too
Can't
late.
change it. Locked in.
Watch them pull like an Appalachian State against Michigan on Indiana, and we all just look like buffoons for picking this game.
Yeah, but I think we look more like buffoons if we expected Idaho to win. And here's our hot take for this week.
Here we are.
Yeah. We've gone on long enough about this.
Yeah, I think
think
this
we're
could
putting a
really
little
come
too
back
much
to
time
bite
into
us.
Yeah, let's hope this doesn't come back to bite us.
Yeah.
But well, we don't know. We'll see.
Tailgate
Saturday.
Field's open at 1. You're just out there to have a good time anyway. That's 7 hours of tailgating
open at
before the
1?
game even starts. Yeah.
They open at 4. When did they
I think they open
last
at
week?
1.
Wow.
Wow.
I think they
oh
open,
my
yeah.
God.
Wow.
Wow.
That's all. Wow. Oh, wow.
Podcast has gone off the rails.
I think just
Last
fade
5
it in
minutes.
while we're going, wow. And then just doodle-doo-doodle-doo-doodle-doo-doodle-doo-doo. Bye. Do your outro, Carlo. Do it.
Thank you for tuning in. To
And you better
Pack
keep
the-
this in. Keep talking.
Thank you for tuning in to Pack the Rock
Wow.
podcast, episode 2.
Wow.
Follow
I'm
us
really getting
on
in your
Twitter,
head.
Instagram, and Spotify at the Hoosiernet. I've been your host, Carlo Barone, joined
Wow.
alongside Max Parker and Evan Gerike
Wow.
of the Hoosier Network.
Wow.
We'll see you guys next week.
Wow.
Wow.
Perfect.